This week on Money Matters, a major stumbling block for Samsung as a U.S. activist hedge fund attacks a key merger aimed at paving the way for new leadership. The MERS outbreak in Korea has many people on their toes, and it's not just health officials. We look at the effects seen in the country's economy. What stories matter in Asia? We'll look at the changing landscape of business in Korea and the rest of Asia on Money Matters. Hello everyone, I'm your interim host, Na Hyun-kyung. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll start off with some of the top business headlines across Asia. Following the global financial crisis, Korea has become the third most popular destination for foreign investment in stocks and bonds out of 18 emerging economies. According to Bloomberg and Kyobo Securities, offshore investors snapped up a net $225 billion in bonds and equities since 2010, placing the country in third place after Israel and Qatar. However, with the U.S. Federal Reserve expected to raise its federal funds rate later in the year, an outflow of capital is expected. The Institute of International Finance projects foreign investment will dip to a 6-year low in emerging economies. Remarks from Bank of Japan governor triggered an upward surge of its local currency, saving it from a 13-year low against the dollar last week. Speaking to Parliament, Governor Haruhiko Kuroda said the yen is unlikely to further slide on a real effective exchange rate basis in the future, setting off a strong reaction in the markets. But according to Reuters, BOJ officials later said Kuroda had simply spoken off the cuff and was not suggesting a weak yen is no longer viewed as beneficial to Japan's economy. China has, in effect, secured veto power in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, with its share representing 25 to 30% of the total votes. Citing the Beijing-led bank's articles, the Wall Street Journal reported that China is providing roughly $30 billion of the total $100 billion capital base. Now, with this, Beijing will hold enough votes to block key decisions involving structure, membership, and capital increases. The AIIB has 57 founding countries, including Korea, and will likely kick off by the end of this year. The daily stock price band of Korea's two main indices, the Kospi and Kosdaq, has been doubled to 30% as of June 15th, opening the way for a greater range of movement in equity trade. The expansion is aimed at lowering the risk of speculative trading and boosting transactions on the local bourses. Market operator Korea Exchange said it will introduce more detailed circuit breakers in light of increased volatility expected to stem from the expanded band. It also says change in the daily cap is in line with more advanced markets, providing investors with greater freedom. Korea's largest conglomerate, Samsung, announced the merger between its two affiliates, Jail Industries and Samsung C&T, late last month. Now, the deal is viewed as yet another step to pave the way for heir apparent Lee Jae-yong to strengthen his grip on the company, but it has hit a snag with a major foreign investor looking to quash this takeover. We take a look at some of the key issues in this next report.
Samsung Group's de facto holding company, Jail Industries, announced last month plans to merge with affiliate Samsung C&T in an all-stock deal by September. But U.S. activist hedge fund Elliott Management, which holds shares in Samsung's construction unit, publicly announced its opposition to this takeover, saying the share exchange rate greatly undervalues Samsung C&T.
주가에 의해서만 그 합병 비율이 산출이 돼서 1대 0.35라는 합병 비율이 결정이 났거든요. 매출액도 크고 영업이익도 훨씬 더 많고 그리고 자산 규모도 엄청나게 더 큰 삼성물산이 어떻게 1대 0.35의 합병 비율이 나오는 게 이게 말이 되는 것이냐. 그 합병 비율의 산출에 있어서는 주가가 절대적인 기준이 되지는 않거든요. 자산 규모라든지 다양한 요소들이 고려가 돼야 되는데
The hedge fund earlier this month acquired additional shares to become Samsung C&T's third largest shareholder with a total 7.12% stake. Other major shareholders include Samsung affiliates, Korea's National Pension Service, and chemical and auto parts manufacturer KCC. Foreign investors own around 34% of the company's shares, and of them, Elliott has by far the largest stake.
So far, Elliott management has filed 2 injunctions against Samsung C&T. The first is to block a shareholder vote meeting in July, and the second challenges the legality of shares recently sold to a merger-friendly stakeholder of the construction arm. Now, the first hearing for both injunctions will be held here tomorrow at the Seoul Central District Court.
The second injunction filed by Elliott has to do with Samsung C&T's recent sale of treasury shares. In response to Elliott's threat, Samsung enlisted a powerful ally on board by selling all of its treasury shares equivalent to a 5.8% stake in the company to KCC. Elliott has called this a move to shore up voting support, but the construction unit hopes the sale will defend the firm and its shareholders from what it calls a foreign hedge fund seeking short-term gains. In terms of where other shareholders stand, Samsung affiliates and KCC, which make up about 19%, are in favor of the merger, while around 9%, composed of Elliott, Dutch All-Pension Group, and Ilsung Pharmaceuticals, are against it. Both sides are seeking support from foreign and smaller shareholders, as well as the National Pension Service, which is thought to hold the swing vote. Hundreds of small shareholders in Korea have banded together online in support of Elliott and are even considering whether to delegate their voting rights to the hedge fund. But so far, no legal action has been taken.
제일모직이랑 합병하는 건 좋다 이거예요. 근데 왜 지금 이 시점이냐 이거죠. 가장 내가 쌀 때, 조금이라도 내가 비쌀 때에서 내가 조금이라도 유리한 시점에 해줘야 되는데 그렇지 않은 거기 때문에 이제 반발을 하는 것이고 그 부분에 있어서는 결국은 이 모든 싸움의 그 단초를 제공한 건 이제 삼성의 그리고 특히 이재용 부회장의 승계 과정이었다라는 것이죠.
This is not the first time there's been a conflict of interest between a Korean firm and a foreign hedge fund. In 2003, Dubai-based Sovereign Asset Management waged a battle against SK Group's holding company seeking to take part in management before exiting with around $900 million in capital gains in 2 years. Experts say clashes with foreign shareholders often stem from Korea's corporate governance structure.
과거에도 오너가 갖고 있는 어떠한 소형 기업을 빠르게 키워가지고 다른 대형 계열사와 합병을 통해서 결과적으로 경영권을 공고히 했다라는 케이스가 굉장히 많았고 나중에는 이번과 같은 합병과 같이 결과적으로 오너 입장에서 유리한 방향으로 지배구조를 끌고 갈 수 있는 그런 기회를 만들어준 것 같습니다.
More Korean companies have slowly been undergoing the process of separating corporate ownership and management. But to some foreign investors, the still complex webs of family-driven cross-shareholding remain troublesome.
Now it seems nowadays there's an application for almost everything. From online banking to music streaming, our smartphones are evolving and even expanding into new territory. But what are the most commonly used applications by people around the world? On today's In Numbers, we'll be taking a look at the world of mobile applications. Now recently, venture capitalist Mary Meeker released an annual report on internet trends, and while some of the information wasn't too surprising, she had some interesting insight into the world of mobile apps. Now, California-based venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins, where Meeker serves as partner, revealed in a report that messaging will become a much bigger part of our lives by serving as not just a means of communication, but also as a platform for commerce and computing. The company ranked the top 10 applications by number of sessions per day, and while the list includes options like Facebook and Instagram, 6 of the 10 are messaging applications, and they include Facebook, Messenger, Viber, Line, WeChat, WhatsApp, and Kakao Talk, all of which are said to be quickly growing. But let's take a closer look at some of the numbers behind these top applications. Sitting at number 5, Naver's Line application was launched in 2011 as a messaging platform and has grown into one of the world leaders, with annual sales coming in at $95 million. 60% of the revenue is said to come from games and 20% from emoticons and stickers. Now in 4th place is the largest Russian social network used throughout Europe. With over 200 million users, VKontakte is another heavy hitter in the app market. And in third, another messenger platform with over 549 million users and annual revenue of $16 million is China's WeChat, which also kicked off in 2011. Second place is WhatsApp with an estimated 30 billion messages sent a day. Now last year, Facebook acquired this app for $22 billion. And finally, the world's most used application is KakaoTalk, an already omnipresent app here in Korea. It's been upping its game with the launch of new services such as Kakao Taxi. Now the app brings in over $90,000 in profits on a daily basis just based on emoticons, and it has grown at an astonishing rate since its launch in 2010 here in Korea. Now that's it for today's In Numbers. I'll be sure to keep an eye on any new trends and developments coming your way.
Now it's time to take a look into some of the latest business trends. For that, we have our Misorang in the studio as usual. Hello, Misorang.
Hello.
What do you have for us today?
Well, have you heard of the Bilderberg Group?
Yes, they are an elite group and they're often compared to G8 in terms of global influence,
That's right, very powerful. Now, the group was established more than 60 years ago with the aim of improving cooperation between Western Europe and North America. And since then, they've been holding annual conferences in Europe where they discuss global issues on multiple fronts. Now, as many know, the group is very secretive. Meetings are held behind closed doors, press coverage is strictly forbidden, and members are bound by Chatham House rules, meaning they are not allowed to quote each other afterwards. But they do make the list of participants and main topics public on their official website. And for this year's conference, some 130 participants gathered at the Austrian Alps last week from June 11th to 14th. Members came from a diverse background, politics, academia, media, and so on. But the largest group was from the finance sector, including giants Deutsche Bank, AXA Group, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. According to the published agenda, members talked about Greece, globalization, and cybersecurity, among other things. But as for what came of it, well, the rest of us will never know.
Well, talk about a top VVIP list. I think that's why some people still keep talking about the conspiracy theories, right?
That's right, very raging on.
Okay, what do you have for us next?
Well, many of the world's banknotes feature stunning natural landmarks. On the back of Chinese 20 yuan note is the Li River in south-central China. Scenic cruises along this river are offered throughout the year, and you'll often find tourists comparing the view with the image on the 20 yuan note. Meanwhile, in Japan, its 1,000 yen note depicts Mount Fuji and the surrounding lake Motosu. The highest mountain in Japan, Mount Fuji is famous for its near-perfect symmetry and has inspired numerous artists and poets. And for this reason, it was added to the World Heritage List as a cultural site in 2013. And as for the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest, well, that's featured on all 7 denominations of the Nepalese rupee, and the Himalayan range is on the Indian 100 rupee banknote.
That is beautiful. They kind of remind me of the Korean 1001 note. It doesn't have the mountain scenery, but it does have the historic site and the beautiful scene of Andong city of Gyeongsang-buk province.
That's right. I didn't realize that.
All right, what do you have for us next?
Well, let's talk about food for our last topic. It's about samgakgimbap, or the triangular rice balls that are handy meal replacements.
They make up a significant portion of sales for convenience stores, right?
That's right, and not only in Korea, but in Japan as well. And I guess one of the attractions is that they're very affordable. For example, whereas a packet of chips has almost tripled in cost over the last decade, samgakgimbap has remained more or less the same at less than $1 each. Now, on the outside, the rice balls look similar in both countries, but on the inside, there are subtle differences. It's been 26 years since samgakgimbap first hit the shelves in Korea, but in Japan, where it's called onigiri, it's been sold at convenience stores since the 70s. Now, the biggest difference between samgakgimbap and onigiri is in the filling. Koreans prefer a mixture of ingredients in the stuffing and for the rice to be flavored as well. This explains why jeonju bibimbap and fried kimchi flavors are so popular. On the other hand, the Japanese like it simpler with single ingredients, such as plain salmon or marinated kelp. But there is one variety that's a universal hit, the tuna mayonnaise. This one almost always makes it to the top 3 best-selling flavors in both countries.
Well, we're going to have to stop there. You're making me hungry now. Thank you, Ms. Rang, for bringing us these stories today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS outbreak, has shaken up the country, but health officials warn that fear of the coronavirus may be reaching unwarranted levels. This has led to growing concern about the impact it will have on the country's economy, and our Im Yoon-hee is here to tell us more. Very good to see you again, Yoon-hee.
Thank you for having me. Right, so Korea has been experiencing some direct effects as a result of the MERS outbreak, with scores of foreign tourists canceling their trips to the country. Now, domestic consumption is also taking a thumping, and officials are calling for swift containment of the disease to minimize damage to the economy as well. We'll get a closer look at some of the challenges Korea faces in this next report. Officials from the World Health Organization recently visited Korea to assess the dangers of the MERS outbreak. The Director General of the WHO, Margaret Chan, who also oversaw the outbreaks of avian flu in Hong Kong and SARS in Asia, said Korea has a strong medical system, and she believes the country will be able to contain the spread. Of the high-risk disease outbreaks since the 90s that sparked much fear around the world, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, was at level 6, while MERS, the avian flu, the swine flu, and Ebola are on lower levels. The WHO has not recommended any travel restrictions to Korea, and many other international experts have said fear over the MERS outbreak has exceeded healthy levels.
We would not be surprised, we would not be surprised if we see a few cases coming up from the community.
The problem is the outbreak has already started to have real effects on the economy. Now I'm here in Myeongdong, one of Seoul's key areas for business and tourism. And on any given day, the streets here are usually overflowing with people. But recently, there's been a significant decrease in visitors from China and Japan, but also locals as well. At a number of stores in Myeongdong, popular among Chinese tourists, employees say that they have felt the effects of the disease, with the number of foreign customers dropping rapidly.
혹시 요즘에 메르스 때문에 사람들 많이 줄었어요? 네, 엄청 많이 줄었어요. 명동에 원래 관광객들이 되게 많았는데 관광객이 확 줄어들면서 매상도 완전 안 좋아지고 거의 매출이 한 80% 정도는 줄은 것 같아요. 관광객 매출은.
In the case of the tourism industry, the number of foreign visitors canceling their trips has surged. Korea Tourism Organization says over 100,000 have called off their visit since the first case of MERS was confirmed.
초창기이기 때문에 지금까지는 그렇게 힘들다는 얘기는 좀 안 하고 있습니다만은 이것이 장기화가 된다고 했을 때는 중국인 관광객이 이제 감소할 것이 아닐까 이렇게 걱정들 하고 있습니다.
With many visitors from mainland China and Hong Kong turning away from Korea, a number of sectors are starting to feel the pinch. The first signs are seen in the country's stock market. Local cosmetic brands that have boasted immense popularity with Chinese tourists have seen their values dropped. In total, cosmetic companies have seen a loss of $4.3 billion in market cap. Stocks associated with travel and leisure activities have also been on a downward ride.
발병 초기였던 지난 5월 말부터 우리나라 주가 흐름은 다른 미국이라든지 독일, 프랑스, 일본 다른 주요국들보다 좀 저조한 그런 흐름이 나타났었습니다. 이번 주 들어서는 외국인 투자자들의 순매도 이런 것들이 좀 이어지면서 국내 주식시장에 대해서 상대적으로 조금 비관적인 그런 전망 이런 것들이 나오고 있는 것 같아요. 반면에 채권 시장에서는 비교적 한국은행이 금리도 인하하고 그랬기 때문에 비교적 그 투자 자금 유입이 계속해서 좀 이어지고 있다 이렇게 볼 수 있겠습니다.
When it comes to local gatherings, including seminars, product launches, and other business events, many have been called off or postponed, while the same goes for cultural performances like musicals. Anxiety triggered by MERS has dampened consumption, causing reason for belief the local economy will further struggle. Since the 90s, the world has seen a number of diseases plague the economy every 3 to 4 years. SARS, which claimed 912 lives, clobbered the economy in mainland China and Hong Kong, creating $50 billion in losses. The avian flu scarred the economy by 40 times the amount lost to SARS. In the case of the swine flu, although the number of lives claimed was at roughly 30, economic losses mounted to $4 trillion, becoming the most expensive disease outbreak since the turn of the century.
외국인들의 국내 방문이 감소한다던가 이제 사람 모이는 장소라던가 이런 쪽에서 사람들이 가는 걸 기피하다 보니까 이제 민간 쪽에서 소비 위축 현상이 나타나고 이러다 보니까 이것이 수요 감소를 유발하고 또 생산 감소를 유발하면서 GDP에도 영향을 주는 이런 측면으로 생각을 해볼 수가 있는데
The Bank of Korea slashed its key interest rate to a fresh record low as a preemptive measure against the negative impacts of the MERS outbreak. Although concerns linger about the country's mounting household debt, the central bank is hoping for a boost in spending.
수출 부진과 메르스 사태의 영향 등으로 성장 전망 경로에 하방 리스크가 커진 것으로 판단돼서 이번 달에 기준금리를 0.25%포인트 인하하기로 결정하였습니다.
Businesses in the tourism and retail sector, as well as performance agencies and restaurants, are among those that have been hit the hardest. To alleviate the burden, the government has proposed a number of measures for financial support and greater access to loans. What's key is to quickly move to prevent further economic losses and minimize the damage that's already been done.
현재는 그 메르스라던가 이런 질병에 대한 과도한 불안감, 최선으로는 이러한 소비 심리를 갖다 다시 회복시켜서 일단 피해를 최소화하고 그다음에 과대한 불안이나 공포 심리를 없애서 일상으로 돌아오게 함으로써 오히려 그 경제 회복을 촉진시키는 것이 오히려 더 직접적인 효과가 있지 않을까 하는 생각이 듭니다.
So we can't deny that the MERS outbreak has created anxiety in the community here in Korea, leading to trouble for many in the business sector. But even in the middle of all this, there are some sectors that have been getting a lift, I hear.
Right, so recently we've actually been seeing some growth in response to the MERS outbreak. We've been seeing a boom in sales of prevention products and related equipment. Now, sales for things such as dairy goods with added features to boost people's immune systems and antibacterial goods, they've been climbing, and I'm sure you've noticed many people walking around with masks. Now, the companies are busy making these masks to meet the growing demand.
And the finance minister actually has called on people to normalize economic activities, and there's also talk about extra stimulus measures at this point.
Exactly. So Minister Choi Kyung-hwan actually mentioned recently that the government may drop a supplementary budget to help cope with the effect of MERS. But he did say the ministry will monitor economic conditions for now and make the final decision at the end of this month. Now, aside from that, the ministry has also pulled together a special team that keeps watch on the economic impact of MERS, and the Financial Supervisory Service, meanwhile, is looking for ways to help troubled businesses with extra funds, extending loans and other support from banks and financial institutes.
Right, so boosting domestic spending and inviting tourists back to Korea will play a crucial role for Korea in the near future.
Right.
All right, thank you very much, Yuni, for today's report.
You're very welcome.
And that wraps up this edition of Money Matters. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll bring you plenty of stories as they unfold in Asia next week and give you a view of the changing landscape of business in the region. I'm Na Hyun-kyung. Thanks for watching.